The first thing the homeless man noticed was the sound of the car. It was smooth, powerful, and far too expensive for the street where he was sitting. He slowly lifted his head. A black luxury car had stopped beside him. For several seconds, nobody moved. Then the passenger door opened. A beautiful woman stepped out. She was dressed in a bright yellow evening dress, her long dark hair falling over her shoulders. She looked completely out of place standing beside a man whose clothes were torn, whose shoes were missing, and whose face looked like he had not slept properly in weeks. The man lowered his eyes. "Please," he muttered. "I don't need anything." The woman stared at him. "I didn't ask you what you needed." He looked up. She walked closer and crouched beside him. "What's your name?" The man hesitated. "Daniel." "Daniel what?" "Daniel Carter." She studied his face. There was something strange about him. He didn't look like an ordinary homeless man. His hands were rough, his clothes were dirty, and his beard was untrimmed, but his eyes were different. Calm. Sharp. Almost educated. She pulled a few bills from her purse and held them toward him. Daniel shook his head. "No. No. I don't want your money." The woman frowned. "Then what do you want?" Daniel looked toward the mansion behind her. "Just somewhere to sleep." Something about those words changed her expression. She looked at the mansion. Then back at him. "Come with me." Daniel immediately shook his head. "Ma'am, I think you're making a mistake." "Maybe I am." She stood. "But I'm making it anyway." Daniel stared at her. "You want me to come to your house? I want you to eat something, take a shower, and sleep somewhere that isn't the sidewalk. I can't pay you." She smiled faintly. "I didn't ask you to." She extended her hand. Daniel looked at it for several seconds before finally taking it. That simple decision would change both of their lives. Her name was Amelia. And Daniel had no idea that the woman helping him was one of the wealthiest women in the city. She owned several businesses, luxury properties, and enough money to have never worried about the price of anything in her life. But Amelia had never been impressed by money. Her childhood had taught her something different. Her father had built his fortune from nothing, and before he died, he had always reminded her. Never measure a person's worth by what they own. One day, you may meet someone who looks like nothing but carries everything inside him. Amelia had never forgotten those words. Still, when she brought Daniel home, even she couldn't explain why she had done it. The moment they entered the mansion, 3 women standing near the entrance turned toward them. Their smiles disappeared. One of them whispered, "Is that a homeless man?" Another covered her mouth. Daniel immediately stopped walking. "You can take me back." Amelia looked at him. "Why?" "Because I'm already causing problems." "You're not causing anything." She turned toward the women. "He's my guest." Nobody said another word. Amelia led Daniel upstairs. She gave him clean clothes, showed him the bathroom, and told him dinner would be ready in 20 minutes. Daniel stood alone in the enormous bedroom. He looked around. The bed probably cost more than everything he had owned during the last year. He walked toward the window. From there, he could see the city. Millions of lights. Millions of people. And somewhere beneath all those lights was the life he had lost. His expression changed. For the first time, his eyes filled with pain. He whispered, "They really thought I was dead." At dinner, Amelia noticed something unusual. Daniel knew exactly how to hold the expensive silverware. He knew which wine glass belonged to which drink. He understood the architecture of the mansion. And when Amelia mentioned one of her companies, Daniel casually corrected her. "You're expanding too quickly in that market." Amelia looked up. "What?" Daniel froze. "I mean, that's what I heard." "You heard?" "Yes." "From whom?" Daniel didn't answer. Amelia leaned back. "You're not what you seem, are you?" Daniel smiled. "Neither are you." For the first time that evening, Amelia laughed. But before she could ask another question, her phone rang. She answered. Her expression changed instantly. What do you mean the board wants to meet tomorrow? She listened. No. Don't sign anything. Daniel quietly continued eating. Then he said. They're trying to force you out. Amelia looked at him. How do you know that? Daniel put down his fork. Because whoever is advising you is giving you bad information. She stared at him. Who are you? Daniel looked directly into her eyes. Someone who made the mistake of trusting the wrong people. The next morning, Amelia discovered that Daniel had been right. 3 of her closest executives had secretly been transferring company assets into another corporation. They were preparing to take control of her business. But there was something they didn't know. Daniel had spent years building companies. He understood financial structures better than anyone Amelia knew. With a few phone calls, he uncovered transactions that Amelia's own lawyers had missed. She became suspicious. Daniel, where did you learn all this? He looked at her. Business. What kind? Technology. Finance. Real estate. Amelia laughed nervously. You're telling me you used to work in those industries? Daniel remained silent. Daniel? He sighed. I didn't work in those industries. Then what did you do? I owned companies in those industries. Amelia's smile disappeared. What? Daniel looked down. My name is Daniel Carter. I know. No. You don't. He reached into the pocket of the clean jacket she had given him. He pulled out an old photograph. It showed Daniel standing beside several businessmen. Amelia looked at it. Then her eyes widened. She recognized one of the men. It was the founder of Carter International. One of the richest businessmen in the country. A man who had supposedly died in a private plane crash 18 months earlier. Amelia slowly looked at Daniel. That can't be you. It is. Her voice dropped. Daniel Carter died. I was supposed to. 18 months earlier, Daniel had discovered that several people inside his company were stealing billions from him. Before he could expose them, his private plane had been sabotaged. The aircraft crashed. Daniel survived. Barely. But the people responsible believed he was dead. He had been taken to a remote hospital under an unknown identity. When he finally woke up, he had lost his memory. Months passed. He eventually remembered everything. But by then, the people who had betrayed him had taken control of his companies. They believed Daniel was gone. So Daniel stayed gone. He lived quietly. He watched. He waited. And he gathered evidence. Until Amelia found him sitting on the street. Amelia stared at him in disbelief. You've been hiding all this time? Yes. Why didn't you go back? Because I needed to know who I could trust. Daniel looked at her. And then you picked me up from a sidewalk. Amelia shook her head. I didn't know who you were. That is exactly why I trust you. But their problems were only beginning. The executives discovered that Daniel was alive. And they were terrified. That night, Amelia heard a crash downstairs. She stepped into the hallway. Daniel was already awake. He grabbed her hand. Stay behind me. What happened? Someone is inside. They heard footsteps. Several men entered the mansion. Daniel pushed Amelia behind a wall. The lights went out. For several terrifying minutes, the mansion became chaos. But Daniel knew the house better than the intruders expected. He led Amelia through a hidden passage into a secure room. Inside, Amelia was shaking. Who are these people? The same people who tried to kill me. Daniel looked at the security cameras. They're here because they know I remember everything. Amelia looked at him. So what do we do? Daniel picked up a phone. We stopped running. The following morning, Daniel revealed himself to the world. Every major news station carried the story. Billionaire Daniel Carter alive after 18 months. The men who had stolen his companies were arrested within hours. The evidence Daniel had secretly collected was enough to destroy their entire operation. But there was one final surprise. At the press conference, reporters asked Daniel the same question. Where were you for 18 months? Daniel looked toward Amelia. She found me. The reporters turned toward her. She found you? Daniel nodded. When everyone else saw a homeless man, she saw a human being. Amelia smiled. Daniel continued. She gave me food when I had nothing. She gave me a bed when I had nowhere to sleep. And she never once asked me what I was worth. He paused. That is why she deserves to know what she is worth. Daniel turned toward Amelia. I want you to become my partner. Amelia laughed. Your business partner? Daniel smiled. That too. The room erupted in laughter. But Amelia's eyes filled with tears. You know, she whispered, when I picked you up that day, I thought I was helping you. Daniel stepped closer. You were. And now? Daniel smiled. Now you've given me my life back. Months later, the mansion looked completely different. The same place where Daniel had once entered wearing torn clothes became the location of a celebration. But Daniel had changed something. Outside the mansion, he had built a foundation for homeless families. Hundreds of people who had once slept on sidewalks were now receiving food, housing, medical care, and job opportunities. Amelia stood beside him as they watched families walk into their new homes. She looked at Daniel and smiled. You really went from sleeping on the street to owning half the city again. Daniel laughed. I never cared about owning the city. What did you care about? He looked at her. Finding out who would still treat me like a human being when I had nothing. Amelia smiled. And you found her? Daniel reached for her hand. I did. The woman who had once stopped beside a homeless man on the street never imagined that the stranger she took home would turn out to be a billionaire. But Daniel never forgot that moment. Because while the world had looked at him and seen a poor, broken man, Amelia had looked at him and simply seen a person. And sometimes, the greatest fortune isn't the money waiting in a bank account. Sometimes, it's the person who chooses to help you when they have absolutely no idea what you will become.